Okay. This is chapter 16 or 17. I don't think it is 17.
16, Prabhuji.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so I hope you all had a blissful Narsimha Chaturdashi festival. It is celebrated as the festival of protection, divine protection given by Lord Narsimha Dev. I liked one statement made by His Holiness Devamrita Swami, one of his classes I heard many years ago. Prahlad, this boy, he stands for the humility, the meekness, the simplicity, the total surrender of any living being. And Prahlad stands for the highest development of spiritual culture. And especially since he is born in a family which is completely opposed to his bhakti, his devotion, it gives us hope that bhakti doesn't depend on your family lineage, your current material abilities or inabilities. It just depends upon your desire to serve Krishna. That's all. And what is opposing Prahlad? Opposing Prahlad is not just a formidable opponent, but his own father to begin with. So many times you can expect opposition from very close quarters. And his father Hiranyakashipu represents the highest development of material qualification. Somebody so absorbed in matter that first they understand in order to conquer matter, you have to perform austerities. So that box is checked. Even Lord Brahma said, "Oh Hiranyakashipu, the austerities you have performed, I haven't seen anybody performing it in the past, and I don't think anybody can perform it in the future." And what do you do with when you perform these austerities? You ask for a benediction, which is just the opposite of your austere mindset. You say, enough of these austerities now. Now I just want to enjoy. So that is another sign of somebody who's not trained in proper spiritual culture. You don't perform fasting and anything so that afterwards you can just, as they say in English, hang your boots and say, enough of my chanting, enough of my reading. I have done my bit. Now it's up to Krishna. No, it means you didn't get that spiritual bliss even while performing those austerities, and you are doing it for a wrong purpose. So then Hiranyakashipu, his father, he goes on a binge. So much of enjoyment, so much of enjoyment. And Prahlad says, what's the result of that enjoyment? Always frustrated. Sada samudvigna dhyam asat grahat. Always disturbed, always wanting more and more, always in a dissatisfied mode, always very angry. So Narsimha Chaturdashi is the clash of these two types of consciousnesses. And then we have this notion that, oh, because to save his devotee, the Lord came down. Yes and no. There's a very fine point. Please listen carefully. The Lord has to save his devotees. He is called Sattvatam Pati, the protector of his surrendered souls. Why won't he come? But our acharyas, the great teachers, say, please understand, this formidable material energy is no match for Krishna's potencies. Krishna doesn't need to take help from someone to save his devotee. Krishna is time. As time, he brings down to their knees big civilizations, Rome, Carthage, Greece, Ravenna, all gone to dust. So as time, Krishna can kill anyone. As the super soul Paramatma, if he just leaves someone's body, the soul has to come with him. So Krishna just has to wish that enough, and that's it. The biggest demon is dead. So the real reason God comes down is to give his divine darshan, give his appearance, the fully spiritual appearance in a fully material atmosphere, so that the devotee gets blissful just by seeing him. Now, a devotee always sees Krishna in his heart, but to see Krishna in his glorious incarnation, as a pastime incarnation, Leela avatar, that's the most beautiful part. And what is the merciful part here? You and me, after millions of years, can discuss that story and purify our tongues by speaking and purify our ears by hearing. Any historical thing which, like, people may see and visit Shakespeare's house, but do you get the experience of being with Shakespeare or Charles Dickens or Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Mahatma Gandhi? That jiva, that soul who became Mahatma Gandhi or who became Abraham Lincoln is now in some other body, completely away from this atmosphere. Like in Russia, they have kept the body of Vladimir Lenin, their founder of the Soviet Union. I was reading a report and they said those chemists and embalmers who keep the body preserved in some chemical, oh, he's doing fine. He is doing fine. He left his body in 1920, he's gone. It is something like you fly by United Airlines or by Spirit or by Research or maybe Delta, whatever, and you see the flight number, you see the plane, and you say, oh, 6 months ago, this seat was mine. It is foolishness. That seat is gone to someone else. So, whether pleasurable or miserable, material things are temporary. Time just takes us to another body, another level. This process, the Bhagavad Gita assures, continues till we develop Krishna consciousness and develop a spiritual body. So, how do you develop a spiritual body? Just like how you develop a material body. You have material desires, and that desire is fitted in a particular body. You want to fly? Be a bird. You want to sleep for 6 months? A polar bear. You want to eat tons of food every day? Be an elephant. You want to procreate 60 times a day? Be a pigeon or a sparrow. Everything is available. So, if Krishna can fulfill our material desires just for the asking, as they say, he can also fulfill our spiritual desires just for the asking. And that's how we sit together, we meet, we chant Hare Krishna privately, we chant in Sankirtan together, we discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is the process by which our desires become spiritualized or become spiritual. Prabhupada says, an expert electrician can make a box which can give ice and another box which can give fiery heat. The principle is just to use electricity properly. The same electric current goes in the fridge which goes in the oven, but the results are completely opposite. So we have in Mayapur Dham our divine appearance of Narsimhadev. That's a big story. Someday we will discuss that. For today, we shall bring our attention to our Adi Lila, chapter 16, text 12. Mahaprabhu is now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nimai Pandit, the scholar. He is visiting East Bengal. Today it's called Bangladesh. So I'm reading text 12. स्वप्ने एक विप्र कहे सुनह तपन निमाई पंडित पाशे करह गमन. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Tapan Mishra, being thus bewildered, was directed by Brahmana in a dream to go to Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 13. तेहो तुम्हार साध्य साधन करिबे निश्चय साक्षात ईश्वर तेहो नाही का संशय. Because he is the Lord, Ishvara, the Brahmana told him, undoubtedly he can give you proper direction. Text 14. स्वप्न देखी मिश्रासी प्रभुर चरणे स्वप्नेर वृत्तांत सब कैला निवेदने. After seeing the dream, Tapan Mishra came to the shelter of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet and he described all the details of the dream to the Lord. Text 15. प्रभु तुष्ट होया साध्य साधन कहिला नाम संकीर्तन करो उपदेश कहिला. Translation. The Lord, being satisfied, instructed him about the object of life and the process for attaining it. He instructed him that the basic principle of success is to chant the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Purport. The Krishna consciousness movement is based upon this instruction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one must chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly and according to the prescribed principles. We simply ask our Western students to chant at least 16 rounds a day, but sometimes we find that they fail to chant even these 16 rounds, and instead they bring many austere books and a worshipping method that diverts their attention in so many ways. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult is based upon the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Lord Chaitanya first advised Tapan Mishra to fix his mind on this chanting. We, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, must strictly follow this advice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, there is an interesting background which sometimes devotees don't discuss, but I find it very curious, interesting, in fact, very merciful. How much should we chant? Can anyone give a reply? How much should we chant?
More than what we talk in a day.
Okay. More than what we talk. Oh, we talk all the time. Kirtaniya Sadahari, Kameshwari Mataji is saying here. Oh, yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, knowing that people don't have time, especially householders, you have so many obligations, and a typical feature of householder life is it's like, oh, you have to do it, you have to pay the bills, you have to work, you have to go for a better paying job, you have to have this much money, you have to have, it's like you have to. And initially at least it feels there is nothing wrong with that, but then the you have to goes into socialization, you have to You have to go to this wedding ceremony, or you have to go to this program, you have to do this, you have to do that. And you don't even know when you are completely surrounded by simply social, physical, material, emotional engagements, and you forget why I am here. So, this is universal. It's not for a particular country, caste, community, or sect, or whatever. So, we find that in the Vedic culture, householders always assume that, oh, I am entangled. I am entangled. That brings them humility. And when they see a sadhu, when they see a holy person, they respect that person for the detachment. That detachment is the wealth of a devotee of the Lord. What if you see a devotee who is attached? That's like a paradox, but it happens just by wearing a dress, wearing a particular hairstyle doesn't make you detached. It has to come from within. So Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, what he did was, he would tell his householder disciples 4 rounds, 4 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. One round takes, what is your general observation? This devotee Sangha assembled here, how much time should you spend on one round?
5 to 7 minutes.
5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, correct. 5 to 7 is the average. 7 also is good. What if somebody takes 17 to 20 minutes? That means the mind is, yeah, the mind is distracted, or either you are so tired, better take some rest and then chant. What if you do it in below 4 minutes? Then you are chewing up some numbers. And surprisingly, there will be a purport which I hope will come in our reading. Prabhupada said, you should chant, not just make a hissing sound. So, even during Prabhupada's time, you must have seen people. So, I have seen sometimes you have to struggle with that, and then you have to bring that. So, if it is too much speed is good, not good, and too slow also is not good. So he said 4 rounds. Skipping beats too. Yeah, correct. But there are so many funny stories I can share. One is, this is a Vrindavan temple, and usually they would get boys from the nearby villages from North India. So the temple commander would say in the very first few days of their training camp, training module, that hey, all of you are full-time devotees here in the temple, 16 rounds. And one boy, in about 10 minutes or so, he would say 16 rounds done. So he said, how come you can chant 16 rounds in 10 minutes? So he asked him, he came to know that he just sits for the japa and then gets up and then goes off to do some seva or take some rest. So he said, do you chant 16 rounds? He said, oh, of course, yes. So how do you chant? So he saw that rather than keeping his fingers on one bead, he would just go Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That means for Hare he would go touch one bead, for Krishna another bead, and therefore he would say that, yeah, rounds done. In our temple, we have Radha Gopinath Prabhu, who is to take care of the boys. We have had an orphanage here, now it is shifted to our farm. So he noticed that one particular boy would be very servile, obedient, and he thought there is something suspicious. But just like other boys, his hand was in his bead bag. So one day he just called him and said, so how's your chanting? He said, yeah, very nice. And he said, show me your beads. There were no beads. He would just put his hand in the bead bag with everybody else and just make a show of chanting. So Radha Gopinath Prabhu understood that you have to be a little bit careful with these boys. So 4 rounds minimum. That's the story. We may say, hey, if it is 4 for the Gaudiya Mutt, then why we in ISKCON are chanting 16 minimum every day? Hold your horses. The story doesn't stop there. 4 rounds on initiation. He would give initiation. We are talking of Prabhupada's spiritual master, not our Prabhupada. Prabhupada's spiritual master. 4 rounds on initiation. They're already initiated. Somebody who is Ramesh is now Radha Prasad. So the name has been given. They would say, Guru Maharaj, we want to do deity worship at home. He would say, then 16 rounds minimum. Afterwards, if somebody wants to increase their sadhana, especially in the ashram, serious practitioners, he would say 25. And he made a declaration that if there is someone who wants to join the Gaudiya Mutt, but is incapable of doing any physical service, you sit in your room, chant 64 rounds every day, and I will bring you prasad. I will arrange that prasad comes to your room twice a day at least. Nice offer, right? Don't do anything. Just sit and chant 64 rounds, which takes anything between 7 to 8 hours. Guess what? No takers for the offer. There was nobody who would say, every day, chant for 8 hours? My Lord, who can do that? So 4, 16, and for serious practitioners, something higher. Now we will fast forward our historical understanding. We come to 1966. Srila Prabhupada Swamiji has arrived in the Bowery, Manhattan. And he has in front of him maybe 20 to 25-year-olds, all from the counterculture or hippies, long hair, the flower generation as they were called, experimenting with all kinds of mind-altering substances, listening to Timothy Leary and the poetry of Allen Ginsberg, the musical Hair, the Beatles. To that crowd, Srila Prabhupada began by saying, 64 rounds one should chant. And they said, no way we can do that. So Prabhupada said, all right, so how about 32? And they made a quick calculation, 32, oh, that also will be about 4 to 5 hours. No, Swamiji, no. All right, 16. Now just imagine if now in the West, you cannot bargain, right? You cannot go to Costco or Walmart and say, how much for this? Okay, $20. How about 15? People don't understand that. In India, you do it all the time. Everywhere you just bargain. So Prabhupada gave a very high price. Then 3 times he lowered it. And now people can't reject it. All right, 16. But just see Prabhupada's compassion. He didn't insist on 16 rounds the very first time people got initiated. 6 months after the first initiation, those who were staying in the 22nd Avenue area, on the bathroom there was a small handwritten paper. All initiated devotees should follow 4 negative principles and chant minimum 16 rounds. What was the result of that notice? Half of the initiates left, but some remained. So imagine the kind of planning, the kind of spontaneous compassion Prabhupada had to show just to bring people to this. And this This statement you will find in the Bhagavatam, this you will find in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the conversations. People would have big, big achievers. Somebody could conquer a region, a continent, and that leader would have spiritual problems. But Prabhupada never was the one who would say, "Are you chanting your 16 rounds?" He would say that you have done glorious for Krishna. But please understand, this chanting is like your personal medicine. If you don't boost your immunity and you are going in the outside world, which is full of contamination, how can Krishna help you? Krishna has already helped you by giving you this Mahamantra. Just take it. Sometimes because of a hectic, like temple life can also be hectic. So in the Nectar of Devotion, another book, very sweet, nice book, Prabhupada said, if some of us fail to finish our minimum rounds, we should make it up the next day. That facility is also given. There is a favorite story of mine. This is a devotee couple. They serve in the ISKCON Juhu temple, not far from Chowpatty here. Juhu is a suburb of Mumbai. So the lady, Mataji, she became convinced because her brother, he joined full time in the Delhi temple and she started chanting. And she never told her husband that I'm chanting regularly and uh, you also do that. Surprisingly, she got a job where she was posted in Delhi and she had to go from Mumbai to Delhi every week. So there is a fast train, very famous train called the Rajdhani Express. So every Sunday night she would leave Mumbai, reach Monday morning New Delhi, work till Friday afternoon, Friday evening take the train back. Saturday, Sunday she would spend in Mumbai with her family. One day her husband says, I went to the Juhu temple because my car broke down in front of the temple and I liked it. I got beads and they told me to chant. Imagine what she said. Don't chant more than one round. I'm warning you. And he said, well, it's not bad. I liked it. No, you're not going to go beyond one round. So he said, why? What's the problem? Unless you are confident that you can chant more with some more time available, do not artificially increase your rounds. So one week he's chanting one round. The next week he says, today I had time, so I chanted one more. And she would say, I warned you, now don't go beyond two. Okay? I don't want you to come back. So she used reverse psychology. Instead of pressurizing him, okay, now 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, she actually made lives, it's like a parachute gently coming down. So there is no crash landing. And before he knew, he was already chanting minimum 16. Then they both took initiation. Sometimes I find preachers, they put so much of a pressure on someone to increase their quota, and later something happens, they're not ready, and then people say, oh, I have become neurotic, I can't chant, I took a vow. All kinds of complications may come. So just like while walking, once you are convinced that your right foot is on firm ground, then you lift the left one. And this process continues. So I have seen in my personal experience that chanting should not be seen as Devamrit Swami humorously puts it, it's not like you are sitting in a dentist chair and the dentist says, uh, open your mouth wider, wider. And in India, you don't get Novocaine all the time. It's only used if there's a tooth extraction or something like that. So the dentist says, it's going to hurt a bit. Now, he's saying hurt a bit, but it's not never going to be a bit. You imagine the most painful experience so far. So he says, when you sit for your morning japa, your morning chanting, it's not like a tooth is getting extracted and you're like, oh my goodness, it's so painful. Imagine the best possible sweet or whatever which you like, a cake or cheesecake or gulab jamun, whatever you like, and you get a bowl full of that, like a bowl of 10 big juicy gulab jamuns, and you're going to eat them. How your mood will be? How come you'll be expecting that? He says, I have that kind of a mood before sitting for your japa. So these are just some thoughts. Prabhupada is going to repeat this again and again. That just imagine, our whole movement is based upon chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Absolutely nothing extra is needed. So you can't underestimate the importance of this statement, and you can't kind of deny the importance of it. Prabhupada repeats that so many times. Okay, one last question before I open up for further questions or comments. How much time do you think you require to perfect your chanting?
Lifetime.
Lifetime.
Our Gurujan Prabhu, he gave a small expectation. He said about, Prabhupada said this, but it is not documented anywhere.
40
He
years.
said about 4 decades,
Or
that's all.
40 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. So any comments, any input?
Is it like the age factor, maturity factor, middle age factor?
It's a combination of all these things. By the time you are given such serious time to this process, you take it as a part of your lifestyle. Initially, it becomes, oh, I am adding something to my lifestyle. Later, it becomes, oh, this is part of my life. The third stage is, this is my life. And that takes time.
Can I ask a question, Prabhuji?
Yeah, sure.
So, as you said, the whole Krishna conscious movement is surrounded by only chanting. But while we do other services, chanting other than chanting, we feel some product or satisfaction. Maybe if you're cooking, there is some product, if you're making garlands or doing book distribution. But chanting, we don't have any taste for the holy name. We don't feel that, right? So I'm thinking but everyone says, all the senior devotees, if you do so many services, it doesn't matter. First, your primary service is chanting. Can you help? How can I understand?
The services done by our gross senses, hands, legs, and the knowledge gathering senses, eyes, nose, ears, is always considered secondary to the process of the tongue chanting Krishna's names. If you can do that, there is no need to come down to the level of actually moving around and doing anything, cooking, cleaning, whatever. But the problem with us, not with the process and not with Krishna, is one, intellectually we are not convinced that by merely moving the lips and vibrating the tongue, I can do some service. Number two, we are not yet fully spiritually conscious. So, in order to give us some diversion, oh, you are a painter, paint for Krishna. Oh, you are a cook, cook for Krishna. Oh, you are a singer, sing for Krishna. Oh, you like to manage, manage for Krishna. Print for Krishna. Drive this vehicle for Krishna. Have this farm for Krishna. Grow something for Krishna. So this diversion kind of balances things out. And later you find in our own Vaishnava history, we have Haridas Thakur who would just sit and chant. He would chant 192 rounds every day. So it is 16 into 4 is 64. 64 into 3 is 192. And you may say, how is it humanly possible? Well, it is because he is not an ordinary human being. That's why it's possible. So, just like in a fire sacrifice, you offer grains, you offer ghee, you offer herbs, and that satisfies Vishnu, Krishna, who's like the stomach of the whole body, who's like the root of this whole universal tree. Isn't it common sense that when your stomach is satisfied, you don't take a single morsel? When the roots are satisfied, the tree grows. That same common daily life occurrence, that when you satisfy Krishna with the particular mode of sacrifice which is prescribed for that age, you have to be happy. There is no escape from happiness. But the program for beginners is different from the program for expert chanters. And this is seen in all walks of life. While driving, all of you know how to drive. Did you try to learn how to drive by using one hand and whistling at the same time? Initially, no. Initially, in fact, I remember my driving instructor, I used to catch the wheel with such rigidity. He would say, relax, relax, relax. I said, I think the wheel is the main problem, you know. He said, no. Like it's an old car which I was learning on. You have three controls at your feet: the brake, the clutch, and the accelerator. He says this coordination is the main thing which will help you save your life. So sometimes we feel this is important, but an expert says, no, that's not important. This is important. So sometimes you may say, I distributed 200 books last month. So I must be dear to Krishna. So if I don't chant for a few days, it must be okay. No. The potency to distribute came because of your previous chanting. And by not chanting now, you could be hacking at the root of your own bhakti tree. So please be careful. So to summarize, because we cannot focus on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 24/7, as a diversion, we are given hundreds and hundreds of other activities. Please don't think that more books, bigger temples, construction, fundraising, this is a substitute for lack of progress in chanting. No way, no way, no way. If at all you have to sacrifice something, you can sacrifice the activities done by the gross senses, but never sacrifice the service of vibrating Krishna's name with the tongue. It is that important. So if there are no questions, somebody can start reading from the next verse, that is 16.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question. Should I ask?
Oh yes, yeah, ask the question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Like as you mentioned, like Srila Prabhupada said, if suppose you cannot able to finish your 16 rounds, whatever your left round, you should complete on the next day.
Yeah.
So is it applicable for the statement initiation devotees? Because while taking initiation, we take a vow in front of our guru, like no matter it is, we should complete our 16 rounds. So how can we understand this? Like,
It is meant
What is
for everyone.
everybody?
Those who take initiation, they come in the category of serious chanters, serious practitioners. For non-initiated devotees, somebody could make a mental resolve of 2 rounds, 4 rounds, 6 rounds. That also is okay. And even if you say six every day and you didn't chant six, you only chanted four. So the next day you make it up by the four for the six for the day's quota and two from yesterday's quota. That's perfectly all right. Of
So
course,
indirectly,
don't
we,
don't overdo it. Like
yeah.
sometimes you may be 400 rounds in debt accumulated over the last 1 year. Don't do that. I have seen people making note of 3 rounds from last month, 20 of the previous month. I say, actually, I'll tell you something. We have the MBBS course, which is you become a doctor, Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. The next level is a post graduation in medicine called MD, Doctor of Medicine. This is such a cruelly designed course that 16 to 18 hours a day, the doctor has to be on call. The higher ups, they know this guy is only for 2 years or 3 years. They make him do each and every kind of task imaginable in the hospital. We have one, at least one MD in our temple, and he was having this kind of issue that if you are awake, you are on duty. Off duty, you just crash. No time even go to the restroom, no time even for taking your meals. So what he did was he would chant as much as possible, make a note of the shortfall. After he cleared his MD, he went to Mayapur for a month and whole day he would just clear off that previous debt. What to do? So we can make adjustments in individual cases, but expecting mothers, once the baby is delivered, do you think they get time to chant every day? Afterwards, the baby becomes the deity. You have to answer, you
Yeah.
have to understand, you have to do everything. So, Prabhupada made this provision. Don't be neurotic. Don't think Krishna is like a slave master that he say, okay, this is your quota, contribute 16 rounds every day. It's not like that. You don't need to be totally optimistic and go on the other side that, oh, Krishna, understand, today I had a small headache, so I didn't chant. No, that's your mind may take the, make you a fool. So, therefore, we have a system of taking guidance. You have an issue, you explain your things to someone senior. If one person cannot give a proper solution, ask one or two, no issues with that. Then use your common sense and go ahead.
Yes. But is it any like we should not like it's not aparat to guru, right? Not like that, like Prabhuji, because we break the vow. Like if suppose 16 rounds we cannot finish.
See, if you
It's not like
tried,
that.
Krishna knows that you have tried, and that's what
Yeah.
counts.
Okay.
If you take it as a right that tomorrow is my birthday, I'll be engaged in so many things, I'll have to make invitations, I have to make a cake, I have to buy this, others will be glorifying me, and therefore I'm not going to chant. Oh, then you will get the rap. So everything depends on time, place, and circumstances.
Yes. Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Who would like to read?
Should I read, Prabhuji?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Text 16. तंदा
Yeah.
इच्छा प्रभु संगे नवद्वीपे वासी प्रभु आज्ञा दिला तुम्ही याओ Varanasi. Translation. Tapana Mishra desired to live with the Lord in Navadvipa. but the Lord asked him to go to Varanasi, Benares. Text 17. Tahan ama tahan tahan ama sange mo tomara habe darshana agnapana mishra kaila kashite gamana. Translation: The Lord assured Tapana Mishra that they would meet again in Varanasi. Receiving this order, Tapana Mishra went there. Text 18. प्रभुरा प्रभुरा अतर्क्य लीला पूजितेन पारि स्वसंगा चंदना किनी prataya kashipuri. Translation: I cannot understand the inconceivable pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For although Tapana Mishra wanted to live with him in Navadvipa, the Lord advised him to go to Varanasi. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When Tapana Mishra met him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in household life, and there was no indication that in the future he would accept the sannyasa order. But by asking Tapana Mishra to go to Varanasi, he indicated that in the future he would accept sannyasa, and that when he would teach Sanatana Goswami, Tapana Mishra would take advantages of the opportunity to learn the object of life and the real process of attaining it. Text 19. Ye mata bhangera lokera kaila maha hita namadhiya bhakta kaila padhana pandita. Translation: In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu contribute the greatest benefit to the people of East Bengal by initiating them into Harinama, the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and making them learned scholar by educating them. Purport: Following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Krishna conscious movement is distributing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and inducing people all over the world to chant. We are giving people an immense treasury of transcendental literature, translated into all the important languages of the world. And by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this literature is selling profusely, and people are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with the great delight. This is the preaching process of the Chaitanya cult. Since the Lord wanted to call preaching all over the world, the International Society for Krishna Conscious is acting in a humble way so that the vision of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may be fulfilled all over the world, especially in the Western countries. Text 20. Ei mata bhange prabhu kare nana leela eta navadvipe lakshmi virahe dukhi haila. Translation: Because of the Lord was engaging in various ways in preaching work in East Bengal, his wife Lakshmi Devi was very unhappy at home in separation from her husband. Text 21. Prabhura viraha sarpa Lakshmi redham dam shila viraha sarpa vishe tandra araloka haila. Translation: The snake of separation bit Lakshmi Devi, and its position caused her death. And his poison caused her death. Thus, she passed to the next world. She went back home, back to Godhead. Purport: As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.6, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram. One's practice in thinking throughout his entire life determine the quality of his tongue at death, thoughts at death, and thus at death one obtain a suitable body. According to this principle, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune from Vaikuntha, who was absorbed in thoughts of the Lord in separation from him, suddenly went back home to Vaikuntha Loka after death. Text
So
22.
we'll stop
Okay.
here. So
Yes,
just a
Prabhuji.
small explanation that in this particular pastime, Nimai Pandit married twice, and he marries twice or he marries 200 times or 200,000 times. All those whom he married, they are considered part of the internal potency, the Lakshmis coming directly from Vaikuntha. So the wording used here is quite poetic. It says Viraha Sarpa, the snake bite of separation. So it's not exactly a physical snake bit her, it is the separation snake which bit her, and she left her body. What happens to Krishna's body? Like, so called, does he leave a gross body here? In Krishna's pastimes, he did that. And in India, many scholars say, oh, he just departed like an ordinary person. In order to bewilder the atheists, Krishna did that. Krishna does something or anything for a twofold purpose. Those who are devout, those who are pure in heart, they can further purify their consciousness by discussing Krishna Katha. Those who are not like that, they get an excuse not to accept Krishna as the supreme by that particular pastime. Please remember, it's a very important point. Krishna will never force the superior spiritual understanding when you are not interested in understanding that. If somebody wants to prove that I hate Krishna, I don't like that, I want to have some reason that he's not a spiritual person. Oh, here it is. Just see this. So, Prabhupada is making this point in such a simple way that if Mahaprabhu's wife, she attains the spiritual world. Why? Because she is coming from that. She's a resident of the eternal spiritual world. The next wife, the second wife whom he accepts, is also considered technically the consort of Vishnu. That is, she also is a Lakshmi. Her name is Vishnu Priya, and we will discuss her pastimes. One small hint is given that after the Lord took sannyas, she would chant Hare Krishna. After every round, she would take aside 1 grain of rice. In the evening, as many grains of rice are there, that she would boil and cook and accept that. So the Lord is described as the supreme enjoyer. His consort also comes in the category of being a supreme enjoyer. But just see the so-called enjoyment of just chanting Hare Krishna, that much of grains of rice, cook that and eat that. So that is not austerity like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana did. That is considered a transformation of the Ladini potency. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Alladini Shakti Asmat. We will come to we'll visit this point many times when discussing Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So I think we'll stop here. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpataru vishnu kripa
Yeah,
sindhu
Prabha
bhyo
Sandhu
cha.
Devacha Patita